Now, in relation to the present time, where you are, like, for example, we had some again this morning, very good presentations, from all sorts of different experiences. And it is one of the things that we have to learn on the learning, is I make a second concept that I want to advance, and that is the concept of critical friendship, which is a concept developed by Michael Edwards, again, Dr. Edwards, and he, writing about that, means is that we have to be able, exercising reason and instinct, to accept that there are goals towards which we are all hoping to move and struggle and achieve, but that we have to be able to talk to each other in a way that isn't denunciatory. We are not required to have agreed on the strategy of the means or the way. And again, we have to seek not to distort history, because at times people have in fact had significant gains that pushed us along from one mode or another. It would be obscene to suggest that people have not died for working people. They have. It would be obscene to suggest that Parliament has not gained a great deal for working people. But it is an absurdity to suggest that it must be one or the other. And what is needed, frankly, therefore, is a kind of set of relationships within the parties of the left that embodies the concept of critical friendship, with a discourse that is open, that is able to take all of the means and all of the strategies into account with respect for each other. And that does not mean that anything has to be dropped or devalued. With respect, I say in many cases, it is really an overreaction to say, is there something that we should be doing to appeal to the rising individualism of our time? That would be an inappropriate reaction. You would be able to get certain with a certain kind of adjustment to populism. But don't judge it by my words. Judge it by facts. For example, in the party in the neighbouring island, Britain, in many cases, you now have the annual conference has, in fact, the membership is going down, and you're ending up with a conference without members. I attended it as president of the Labour Party, and it was like something between going to the Ideal Homes exhibition and the Bull Show. But that is not an achievement of which they should be proud. It was, by experience, again, as I say, because lest I speak very clearly, both at my age and given my background and my work, I have to be safe to say, I'm an empiricist. Go and look and see what you see. So therefore, we are then, in our own conditions, had to try and realise what it is that's happening without reductionism. And I think that what is very interesting that came out today, let us take up, for example, the Bernard Crick example that we had from Dave Banks. And there you see, you have to be somewhat careful. At any time when history is unfolding, you have no such thing, let me say, and again, we are indebted to our friends in the neighbourhood, people like Hobsbawm and others. There is no neutral reading of history. There is a historiography that must be scholarly. You must be able to be read by your peers. You mustn't lie, you mustn't distort facts. But the interpretation is inherently political, as is very clear in the people like Thompson and Eric Hobsbawm and others. And from time to time, the great unfolding of capitalism in the world has needed what you might call it, what I would call in my own writing, hegemonic myths. That is a dominating myth that carries the whole shape of what is happening. At one time it became the idea of progress, and in the name of that you had the justification of colonization and of impact, and Bacon could write, lead to me nature and her children in bondage and use, and I will show you how you can benefit from them. The idea of nature having its secrets gouged out. These powerful ideas, the idea therefore that there were developed peoples and undeveloped peoples, backward peoples and people who were sophisticated. And this isn't an idle point, Because if you do a close reading of Connolly, you'll find that many of Connolly's actions were directed against empire, as rather than any narrow nationalist achievement in Ireland. Again and again he writes of striking a blow against empire. And it is equally true from my time at Manchester University and elsewhere in my dealing with comrades in England and others, who will notice how the concept of empire seeps its way down to even to the most manual classes, who will see themselves as superior to people of other nations and of other cultures. And it arises today in a contemporary challenge, for example, as you will hear later on or tomorrow when you are discussing distinction between multiculturalism and interculturalism. I'm not going to solve that, but here is the issue. Are there some cultures that are inherently more rational than others? Is that the suggestion? Or do you say with Professor Nussbaum that every culture that we have in the world has at some moment the capacity for reflection, and that has its point of truth and its point of distortion? And then again, if you want a tourist view, should we simply recognize them all, recognizing something, whether in fact it is inherently moral or not, such as female genital mutilation? These are issues. And to that you have to, what I have been saying now off my script, is you have to bring the capacity of mind and work. And I've said that the Labour parties everywhere, have in fact drawn from the rational tradition. They have also been powerfully empowered by the instinctual actions and from that the values of solidarity, values of campaigning for equality, campaigning for justice, internationalism, equality of men and women, respect for the environment. They come from the admixture of those two great traditions. When our party was founded, then, a poverty-stricken, vulnerable movement of labour sought to organise against a version of capitalism that refused the most basic rights to workers, including the right to organise itself. And that confrontation, I suggested, required values like courage, tenacity, and solidarity. Now, into our movement, people, for example, you have to win elections. But you don't have to choose between winning elections and, if you like, taking on the kind of agenda that I'm talking about. I wouldn't have credibility in putting that case if I didn't get the second seat in a 5-seater in Galway West here. And all of the time, people knew precisely where I stood on all of these issues, be it civil unions, be it in relation to equality of men and women over about 25 years, all of these issues, and above all else, the war. And the people who supported the ethical dimension of my own record and the record of the Labour Party in this constituency were people who didn't say, well, are we professional, or are we manual, or are we franco, or are we blue? The reality was that they knew the values that had been spoken about. And there were many as well who said, I don't agree with you, but I respect you. And I believe that that is terribly important. Later on in my paper, you'll see, I have in the printed version, if you look at it on the website, you will see, if you add the first preference vote of the Labour Party and the Green candidate in this last election of 2007, in 20 constituencies, the combined vote would be at the top of the votes cast. In 10 other constituencies, it would be in second place. The interesting thing, let us draw our own conclusion from it. Whatever advice you give the electorate was expressing a preference of its own in relation to the transfer between Green and Labour. It's for the future. But it is, again, an empirical fact there for us to analyse, and it should inform where we will go and how we will act in relation to, for example, in the common goal.